For our comedy video to analyze, we picked Markiplier's history lessons, the Declaration of Independence, explaining the reasons for the signing of the Declaration of Independence and why we celebrate the 4th of July every year. However, Markiplier explains this from an interesting perspective, showcasing many exaggerations of the early British and Americans in their struggle for independence. Here's the whole video.
Hello, my name is Markiplier, and get ready to learn about the 4th of July and all its historicalness. So when we last left off, there was a whole group of pilgrims that had just gotten done murdering everything on the island, and then they discovered that it wasn't an island, it was a whole country, filled with promise and dreams and hopes, which would soon be stomped out for money. So the pilgrims were all like, oh, geez, this place is kinda great! We could live here forever! And then their British fathers came in and was all like,
hey, you making any money?
Or wait, they were British, so they were more like, oi!
You making any money?
And then the early Americans were all like,
No!
So the Brits were all like,
Buy more tea! Let us know when it's time to make money!
and then all the Americans were talking to each other and they're all like,
Oh, yeah, this doesn't seem like a good deal anymore.
No, it's not. It seems like the worst kind of deal that we could get.
Maybe we could do something better for ourselves.
Why is your voice getting deeper?
Don't ask questions, lady! Men's voices get deep when they hit puberty!
And where'd your accent go?
What did I tell you about questions?
Are you Batman?
Yeah, maybe.
so the Americans then decided to reject their British ancestry and forget everything that ever happened to them before that, and then they donned the moniker of being American. Along with it came the powers of greatness, awesomeness, eatingness, goodness. And then there was a war and everyone died. Except for the Americans, of course. We beat everyone into a bloody pulp so that they weren't even recognizable by their own moms, and we became king of the world. All of us, each of us, every one of us. There was George, Franklin, Billy, and Batman, all together sitting up at top of the world. They all had ivory towers and big old crowns. Their dicks were huge. And then they signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th to a long time ago. And that's why we shoot fireworks up into the sky every year.
Because they mask us preemptively striking the aliens in space with their missiles!
First off, one major factor in whether someone finds this funny or not will be the social and cultural context. One of our essential questions brings this up and asks how this may affect what is and isn't funny. Obviously, you need to know about the American Revolution and what built up to it, such as the British tax on tea that Markiplier references. Also, knowing when the Declaration of Independence was signed and who the founding fathers of America were would help some of his jokes make sense and be funny. While we all obviously know when the Declaration was signed and who some of the founding fathers were, people outside this country may have never known exactly when the Declaration was signed and who any of the founding fathers ever were, so they might not understand many of the jokes or references that Markiplier makes. As far as culture goes, some Americans may be offended by this because it dumbs down the struggle for independence and portrays us as very egotistic, but not all will be offended, and in fact they may enjoy it more than others because they can best relate to it. From the eyes of a foreigner, this may appeal more to them as it's not their people or country being insulted, and they like to poke fun at other countries and stereotypes and flaws, just like Mark did to the British in this. Now, by watching this video multiple times, we became professionals at analyzing the video and were able to find many satirical devices. Here are a few. Our video we picked showcases many different types of satirical devices, such as burlesque and description of the Revolutionary War. The whole Revolutionary War is summed up as the Americans being fed up with the British and throw away their history and have a big war and everyone died except the Americans, which makes a very serious struggle and the lives of all those lost seem lighthearted and upbeat, which is almost the exact opposite of war. There are also many stereotypes of Americans and British, as Mark claims that Americans became king of the world, as Americans are commonly stereotyped as thinking that we are the strongest in the world and we don't pay attention to any other country that isn't us. Mark also claims that becoming American gave us special powers.
And then they donned the moniker of being American. Along with it came the powers of greatness, awesomeness, eatingness, goodness.
The British are seen as having an over-the-top accent and are only concerned about money and being oppressive to the Americans, and Mark even goes back on one of his statements to make it more British.
Or wait, they were British, so they were more like, oi!
This also brings up a point on one of our essential questions that asks what purpose does comedy serve? Some may say that it just helps you feel better and gives you a good laugh, and while that is true, there is another point to it. Comedy can also make a boring or complicated subject fun and easy to understand. For instance, in all fairness, Mark does give a fun, dumbed-down version of the road to American independence and some reasons we had the war in the first place. Some people might find history very boring or hard to follow with all the dates and empires and wars, but a comedy such as this can give an easy-to-follow and basic lesson on an otherwise boring subject, and a laugh at the same time, making it fun to watch or listen or read and still be able to learn something valuable. Another satirical device Mark uses is an anachronism when he has the Pilgrim turn into Batman and have Batman be one of the 4 great Americans alongside George Washington, Ben Franklin, and Billy. The Batman he impersonates from the Dark Knight trilogy wouldn't exist for over 2 centuries, which is obviously done intentionally, but makes it appear as the second time as if he was just stumbling to remember a great American, and Batman was the first one that came after George Washington and Franklin.
Are you Batman? Yeah, maybe.
Markiplier uses several farces throughout the video as well, which isn't the highest form of comedy, but is still effective and adds to the humor by the energy he puts into it. Mark uses a farce several times with his over-exaggerated accents and imitations, which may seem childish, but the way he acts them out and writes them makes them work well enough to not take away from the comedy.
So the Brits were all like,
Buy more tea.
Now would be a good time to bring up another essential question we have, which asks, what makes a piece of comedy funny? To some, types of slapstick or weird voices and accents like the previous scenes may be great and love that kind of humor, but others may want a more smart and contextual joke. The thing about comedy is that it is subjective. Not every joke or gag is going to be funny to every person, depending on personality, culture, likes, dislikes, religion, past experiences, and so on and so forth. No piece of comedy can be defined as funny, because being funny is a personal opinion and draws from many aspects. So when we say this part is funny, or this scene is so great because of how hilarious it is, we're not declaring it to be funny, we're rather expressing that we personally found it funny, and you might find it funny as well. Another small device Mark uses is malapropism, when towards the end he starts to say the Declaration of Independence was signed in the 1900s, but he cuts himself off because he knows he's wrong, but gives up and just says a long time ago.
and they signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th to 19... a long time ago.
While he doesn't mispronounce a term, as is the definition of malapropism, he similarly misspeaks and gets the date of the Declaration of Independence off by roughly 2 centuries. Some people may still not find this funny, and it is understandable. Humor is very subjective, as stated before, and not all jokes are funny to all people. We've given a handful of satirical devices used to make it comedic and identified what would make it funny to someone. We've identified burlesques, farces, stereotypes, anachronism, and malapropism, and answered questions about humor such as why something is funny and what social and cultural context is needed, and what the purpose of comedy is. Again, even the questions are subjective, and answers may vary for those questions and whether or not we are right or wrong, but we believe that these are the best answers for those questions and are used to make this video funny.